Anywhere. Eating as usual, I see algae.
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
In the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in the town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It is excessively boring.
And who are the people you amuse?
Neighbors, neighbors.
Got nice neighbors in your part of Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them.
How immensely you must amuse them.
Ah! Why all the cucumber sandwiches? Who's coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolyn.
How perfectly delightful.
Yes, that is all very well, but I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of your being here. The way you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. It is almost as bad as the way Gwendolyn flirts with you.
I'm in love with Gwendolyn. I've come up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you had come up for pleasure. I call that business.
How ugly and romantic you are.
I really don't see anything romantic in proposing. Why? One may be accepted. One usually is, I believe. Then the excitement is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If I ever get married, I'll certainly try to forget the fact. Please don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. They are ordered specially for Aunt Augusta. That's quite a different matter. She is my aunt. Have some bread and butter. The bread and butter is for Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn is devoted to bread and butter.
Very good bread and butter it is, too.
Oh, my dear fellow, you need not eat as if you were going to eat at all. You behave as if you were married to her already. You are not married to her already, and I don't think you ever will be. In the first place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent.
My dear fellow, Gwendolyn is my first cousin, and before I allow you to marry her, you will have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What do you mean out by Cecily? I don't know anyone by the name of Cecily.
Bring me that cigarette case Mr. Worthing left the last time you dined here.
Yes, sir. Do you mean to tell me that you had my cigarette case all this time? I wish to goodness you would let me know. I've been writing flagging letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offered a large reward.
Well, I wish you would offer one. I happen to be more than usually hard up.
There's no good offering a large reward now that the thing is found.
I think that is rather mean of you, Ernest, I must say. However, it makes no matter, for now that I look at the inscription inside, I find that the thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it's mine. You've seen me with it 100 times, and you have no right whatsoever to read what's written inside.
Oh, but this cigarette case is a present from someone in the name of Cecily, and you said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt? Why does she call herself Little Cecily if she is your aunt? Or Little Cecily, with her fondest love.
What on earth is there in that algae? Some aunts are tall, some aunts are not tall. Doesn't matter that surely an aunt may be allowed to decide for herself.
Yes, but why does your aunt call you her aunt? From dear Little Cecily, with her fondest love, to her dear Aunt Jackie. There is no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt. But why an aunt? No matter what her size may be. Should call her own nephew her aunt, I can't quite make out. Besides, your name isn't Jackie after all. It is Ernest.
It isn't Ernest. It's
You've
Jack.
You have always told me it was Ernest.
Yeah.
I've introduced you to everybody as Ernest.
That too.
You answer to the name of Ernest? You look as if your name was Ernest? You are the most earnest-looking person I ever saw in my life. It is perfectly absurd you're saying your name isn't Ernest, it's on your cards. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, the Albany. I'll keep this as proof that your name is Ernest if you ever attempt to deny it to me, or to Gwendolyn, or to anybody else.
My name is Ernest in the town, and Jack in the country, and the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for the fact that your small Aunt Cecily calls you her dear Aunt Jackie. Come on, boy. Best to have the thing out at once. I may mention that I have always suspected you of being a confirmed and secret Bunburyist, and I'm quite sure of it now.
What on earth is a Bunburyist?
I'll reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to tell me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country. Now, produce your explanation, and pray, make it improbable.
My dear fellow, there's nothing improbable about my explanation at all. The old Mr. Thomas Cardew made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily. Cecily, who addresses me as her aunt for motives of respect you couldn't appreciate, lives at my place in the country under charge of her admirable tutor, Mr. Prism.
And where is that place in the country?
There's nothing in you, dear boy. You are not going to be invited.
Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, when one is placed into the position of guardian, one must adopt a very high moral tone on all subjects. It's one's duty to do so. And as a very high moral tone cannot be said to conduce very much to one's health or happiness, in order to get up to town, I've always pretended to have a younger brother of the name Earnest, who lives in the Albany and gets to the most dreadful of scrapes. That, my dear Algie, is the pure truth, and the whole truth, pure and simple.
Truth is rarely pure and never simple. But you really are as a Bunburyist. You are one of the most advanced Bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a very useful younger brother called Earnest, in order that you may be able to come up to town whenever you like. I have invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury, in order that I may be able to go down to the country whenever I choose. If it wasn't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you tonight at Willis's, for I've been really engaged to Aunt Augusta.
I haven't asked you to dine anywhere with me tonight.
I know, you are perfectly careless about sending out invitations. Besides, now that I know you to be a confirmed Bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunburying. I want to tell you the rules.
I'm not a Bunburyist at all, but if Gwendolyn accepts me, I'm going to kill my brother. And yet I might do so in any case. Cecily's a little too interested in him. So, I'm going to get rid of Ernest, and I suggest you do the same with your Mr. Bunny, your invalid friend with the absurd name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. If you ever get married, you'll be very glad to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
That is nonsense. If I marry a charming girl like Gwendolyn, and she's the only girl I ever saw in my life that I would marry, I certainly won't want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. Oh, that must be Aunt Augusta. Now, if I can get her away for 10 minutes so that you may have an opportunity of proposing to Gwendolyn, will you dine with me at Willis's tonight?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about meals. So shallow of them.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you're behaving very well.
I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
That's not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Dear me, you are smart.
I'm always smart, am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You're quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. That would leave no room for developments, and I intend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry if we're a little late, Algernon, but I was obliged to call on dear Lady Harbury. I haven't seen her since her poor husband's death. I never saw a woman so altered. Why, she looks quite 20 years younger. And now, I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Won't you come and sit over here, Gwendolyn?
Thanks, Mama. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens, Lane! Why are there no cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially.
There were no cucumbers in the market this morning, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers!
No, sir, not even for ready money.
That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I am greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumbers. Not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I've quite a treat for you tonight.
I'm afraid, Aunt Augusta, I shall have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all.
I certainly hope not, Algernon. It would put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Well, fortunately, he is accustomed to that.
It is a great bore, and I need hardly say a terrible disappointment to me. The fact is, I've just had a telegram to say that my poor friend Bunbury is very ill. Again.
This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health. I must say, Algernon, that I think it is high time that this Mr. Bunbury made up his mind whether he was going to live or to die. This shilly-shallying with the question is absurd. I should be much obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury, from me, to be kind enough not to have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on you to arrange my music for my reception.
I'll speak to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he is still conscious, and I think I can promise you that he'll be all right by Saturday.
Of
course. The music is a great difficulty. You see, if one plays good music, people don't listen. If one plays bad music, people don't talk. But I'll run over the program I've drawn out if you will kindly come to the next room for a moment.
Thank you, Algernon. Gwendolyn, you will accompany me.
Certainly, Mamma.
Now, French songs I cannot possibly allow. People always... Charming day has been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray, don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I'm never wrong.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I've admired you more than any other girl I met since I met you.
Yes, I'm certainly well aware of the fact. For me, you have always held an irresistible fascination, even before I met you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals, and my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Earnest. There's something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first mentioned to me that they had a friend called Earnest, I knew that I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolyn.
Passionately.
You don't know how happy you've made me.
My own Earnest.
You don't mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest.
But your name is Earnest.
Supposing it was something else.
This is clearly a metaphysical speculation. And like most metaphysical speculation, has very little reference at all to the actual facts of real life as we know them.
Personally, darling, to speak quite candidly, I don't much care for the name of Ernest. I don't think it suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music all of its own. It produces vibrations.
Well, really, Gwendolyn, I must say that there are lots of other, much nicer names. Jack, I think, for instance, a charming name.
Jack.
Yeah.
There is very little music in the name Jack, if any at all. It produces absolutely no vibrations. No, the only really safe name is Earnest.
Gwendolyn, I must get christened. We must get married at once.
Married, Mr. Worthing.
Well, surely, you know that I love you, and you led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, that you weren't absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing at all has been said about marriage. The subject has not even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity, and to spare you any possible disappointment, I think it only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolyn!
Yes, Mr. Worthing? What have you got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you!
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long you've been about it. I'm afraid you've had very little experience in how to propose. What wonderfully green eyes you have, Ernest. I hope you will always look at me just like that. Especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing! Rise, sir, from this semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Mama, I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing hasn't quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
I am engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mama.
Pardon me. You are not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged to someone, I shall inform you of the fact. I have a few questions to put to you, Mr. Worthing. While I'm making these inquiries, you, Gwendolyn, will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mama!
In the carriage, Gwendolyn! Gwendolyn, the carriage! Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell, I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you that you are not down on my list of eligible young men. However, I am quite ready to enter your name should your answers be what a really affectionate mother requires. How old are you?
29.
A very good age to be married at. I have always been of the opinion that a man who desires to get married should know either everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I am pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it, and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England, at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. What is your income?
Between 7 and 800,000 a year.
In land or in investments?
Investments chiefly.
That is satisfactory. Land has ceased to be either a profit or a pleasure.
I own a house in the country with some land, of course, attached to it, but I don't depend on that for my real income.
A country house? You have a townhouse as well, I hope. A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolyn could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
Well, I own a house in Belgrave Square.
What number?
149.
The unfashionable side? I thought there was something. Still, that could easily be altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the side?
Both. Necessary, I presume. Now, two minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents, Lady Bracknell.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father?
I'm afraid I don't really know. The fact is, Lady Bracknell, I said I had lost my parents, but it would be nearer to the truth to say my parents seem to have lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found.
The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, an old gentleman of a very charitable disposition, found me. Gave me the name Worthing because he had a first-class ticket to Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It's a seaside resort.
Where did this charitable gentleman who had a first-class ticket to a seaside resort find you?
And a handbag.
A handbag?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, a handbag. A somewhat large black leather handbag with handles to it.
In what locality did this Mr. Thomas Cardew come across this handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station?
Yes, the Brighton line.
Oh, the line is immaterial! Oh, Mr. Worthing! I confess I feel somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate, bred, in a handbag, seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life that puts one in mind of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. As for the particular locality in which this handbag was found, a cloakroom at a railway station could hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a recognized person in good society.
Well, may I then ask what you would have me do? I need hardly say I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to try and acquire some relations as soon as possible, and to make a definite effort to produce, at any rate, one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
Well, I don't see how I could possibly manage to do that. I could produce the handbag for you at any moment. I really think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What has it to do with
her mother? Perfectly unfair. Never met such a gorgon. I don't really know what a gorgon is like, but I am certain that she is one. I beg your pardon, Algie. I suppose I shouldn't talk about your own aunt in that way before you.
My dear boy, I love hearing my relations abused. It is the only thing that makes me put up with them at all. Relations are simply a tedious pack of people who haven't got the remotest knowledge of how to live, or the smallest instinct about when to die.
You don't think there's any chance of Gwendolyn becoming like her mother in about 150 years or so, do you, Algie?
All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. By the way, did you tell Gwendolyn the truth about her being Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
The truth isn't the sort of thing one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman.
What about your brother? What about the profligate Ernest?
Oh, I shall have got rid of him by the end of the week. I'll say he died in Paris of apoplexy. Lots of people die quite suddenly of apoplexy these days, don't they?
Yes, but it's hereditary, my dear fellow. Sort of thing that runs in families. You would much better say a severe chill.
You are sure that a severe chill isn't hereditary or anything of the kind?
Of course not.
Then that settles it. My poor brother Ernest was carried off quite suddenly in Paris of a severe chill. That gets rid of him.
But I thought you said that Miss Cardew was a little too much interested in your poor brother Ernest. Won't she feel his loss a great deal?
Well, that is all right. Cecily isn't a silly romantic girl, I'm glad to say. She has a capital appetite, goes on long walks, and pays no attention at all to her lessons.
I should rather like to see Cecily.
I will take very good care you never do. She's excessively pretty and only just 18.
Have you told Gwendolyn yet that you have an excessively pretty boy who is only just 18?
One doesn't blurt these things out to people. Gwendolyn and Cecily are perfectly certain to be extremely great friends. I'll bet you anything you like that within the half hour after they've met, they'll be calling each other sister.
Only after they have called each other a lot of other things first.
Miss Fairfax.
Gwendolyn, upon my word!
Algie, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
My own darling.
Ernest, we may never be married. From the expression on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. But although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else and marry often, nothing she could possibly do could alter my eternal devotion to you.
My own darling.
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mamma, with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deepest fibers of my nature. Your Christian name holds an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. Your town address at the Albany I have. What's your address in the country?
The Manor House, Bolton, Hertfordshire.
It may become necessary to do something desperate. How long do you remain in town?
It's a Monday.
Good. Algie, you may turn round now.
Thanks, I turned around already.
I'll see you to your own carriage, my own darling.
Certainly.
Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going bunburying.
Yes, sir.
I shall probably not be back till Monday. You can pack my dress clothes, my smoking jackets, and all the Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
I hope tomorrow will be a fine day, Lane.
It never is, sir.
Lane, you're a perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
There's a sensible, intellectual girl. The only girl I ever cared for in my life. What on earth are you so amused at?
Oh, I'm just a little anxious about poor Bunbury, that is all.
If you don't take care, your friend Bunbury's going to get you into a serious scrape one day.
I love scrapes. They're the only things that are never serious.
That is nonsense, Algie. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.
Cecily? 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 Cecily, your German grammar is on the table. Try to open it, page 15.
But I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well that I look quite plain after my German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every possible way. She laid particular emphasis on your German as she's leaving for town. Indeed, she always lays emphasis on your German when she's leaving for town.
Aunt Jackie is so very serious. Sometimes she is so serious, I think she cannot be quite well.
Cecily, I'm surprised at you. Miss Worthing has many troubles in her life. You must remember her constant anxiety about that unfortunate young man, her brother.
I wish Aunt Jackie would allow that unfortunate young man, her brother, to come down here sometime. We might have a good influence over him, Mr. Prism.
I do not think that even I could produce any effect on a character that, according to his own sister's admission, is irretrievably weak and vacillating. Indeed, I'm not sure that I would desire to. You see, I'm not in favor of this modern mania of turning bad people into good at a moment's notice. As a man sows, so let him reap. You must put away your diary, Cecily. I really don't see why you should keep a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Dr. Chasuble, this is indeed a pleasure.
And how are you this morning? Mr. Prism, you are, I trust, well?
Mr. Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do him so much good to have a short stroll in the park with you, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I have not mentioned anything about a headache.
Oh, no. I know that, but I felt instinctively that you had a headache. In fact, I was thinking about that and not about my German lesson when the rector came in.
Oh, that is strange. Were I fortunate enough to be Mr. Prism's pupil, I should hang upon his lips. I suppose. My metaphor was drawn from bees.
I think, dear doctor, I will have a stroll with you. I find I have a headache after all.
With pleasure, Mr. Prism, with pleasure.
Cecily, you will read your political economy in my absence. The chapter on the fall of the rupee you may omit. It is somewhat too sensational.
Horrid political economy. Horrid geography. Horrid German!
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven over from the station.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, before the Albany, Aunt Jackie's brother. Ask Mr. Ernest Worthing to come here.
Yes, miss.
I have never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I am so afraid he will look just like everyone else.
You are little Miss Cecily, I'm sure.
You are under some strange mistake. I am not little. In fact, I believe I am more than usually tall for my age. But I am Miss Cecily. You, I see from your card, are Aunt Jackie's brother, Ernest. Wicked Ernest.
Oh, Miss Cecily, I don't think you should call me wicked.
Ah! Well, if you are not, then you have certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you have not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked and being really good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Oh, of course. I admit that I've been rather reckless. In fact, now that you mention it, I have been very bad in my own small way.
I don't think you should be quite so proud of that. Although I'm sure it must have been very pleasant.
It is much pleasanter being here with you.
I don't see why you're not here at all. I know Aunt Jackie wanted to speak to you about your emigrating.
About my what?
Your emigrating. Aunt Jackie is sending you to America.
America. I'd sooner die.
Well, you said at dinner on Wednesday night you have to choose between this world, the next world, and America.
The accounts I've received of America and the next world are not particularly encouraging. This world is good enough for me, Miss Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
I'm afraid I'm not that. That is why I want you to reform me. You might make that your mission, if you don't mind, Miss Cecily.
I'm afraid I've no time this afternoon.
Well, would you mind my reforming myself this afternoon?
It is rather quixotic of you, but I think you should try.
I will. I feel better already.
You are looking a little worse.
That's because I'm hungry.
How thoughtless of me. I should have remembered that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
Thank you. Might I have a buttonhole first? I never have any appetite unless I have a buttonhole first.
Marshal Miel?
I'd sooner have a pink rose.
Why?
Because you are like a pink rose, Miss Cecily.
I don't think it can be right for you to talk to me like that. Mr. Prism never says such things to me.
Then Mr. Prism is a short-sighted old man. You are the prettiest person I ever saw.
Mr. Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
They're a snare that every sensible man would like to be caught in.
I don't think I should care to catch a sensible man. I shouldn't know what to talk to him about.
You are too much alone, dear doctor. You should get married.
Oh, believe me, the precept as well as the practice of the primitive church were distinctly against matrimony.
Well, that is obviously the reason why the primitive church has not lasted up till this present day. And you do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that by persistently remaining single, one converts oneself into a permanent public temptation. You should be more careful. This very celibacy leads weaker vessels astray.
But is a person not equally attractive when married?
No person is ever attractive except to their own spouse.
And often I have been told, not even to them.
That depends on the intellectual sympathies of the partner. Maturity can always be depended on. Virility can be trusted. Young women are green. I spoke horticulturally. My metaphor was drawn from fruits. But where is Cecily? Miss Worthing, this is indeed a surprise.
Dear Miss Worthing, I trust this garb of woe does not betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother,
Still leading his life of pleasure.
dead!
Your brother? Dead?
Quite dead.
What a lesson for him. I trust you will profit by it.
Miss Worthing, I offer you my sincere condolence. Were you with him at the end?
No, he died abroad, in Paris. In fact, of a severe chill.
As a man sows, so shall he reap.
Charity, dear Mr. Prism, charity. None of us are perfect. I myself am particularly susceptible to drafts. Miss Worthing, you would no doubt wish me to make some small allusion to this tragic domestic affliction next Sunday. My sermon on the meaning of the man in the wilderness can be adapted to most any occasion. I have preached it at harvest festivals, christenings, confirmations.
That reminds me, dear doctor, I suppose you know how to christen all right? I mean, you are continually christening.
It is, I regret to say, one of the rector's most constant duties in this parish. I've often spoken to the poorer classes on the subject, but they don't seem to know what thrift is.
But is there any particular infant in whom you are interested, Miss Worthing?
It's not for any child, dear doctor. No, the fact is, I would like to be christened myself.
But surely you have been christened already.
I don't remember anything about it. Of course, I don't know if the sort of thing would bother you in any way, or if you think I'm a little too old now.
Oh, not at all. The sprinkling and indeed the immersion of adults is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
You need have no apprehensions. Sprinkling is all that is necessary. Or indeed, I think, advisable. Our weather is so changeable. When would you wish the ceremony performed?
Oh, I might trot around about 5:30 if that would suit you.
Oh, perfectly, perfectly. And now, Miss Worthing, I will intrude no longer into a house of sorrow. I would merely beg you not to be too bowed down by grief. What seem to us bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
Now, this seems to me a blessing of an extremely obvious kind.
Oh, Jackie! Oh, I'm pleased to see you back. But what horrid clothes you have got on. Do go and change them.
Cecily,
What's the matter, Aunt Jackie? You look as if you had a toothache, and I have got such a surprise for you.
Who do you think is in the dining room?
Your brother!
Your brother, Ernest. He arrived a half hour ago.
What nonsense, I haven't got a brother.
Aunt Jackie, don't say that. However badly he may have behaved in the past, he's still your brother. I'll tell him to come out.
These are most joyful tidings.
after all the time his loss, his sudden return seems to me particularly distressing.
My brother's in the dining room. I don't know what this all means. Good heavens!
Dear Jacqueline, I have come down from town to tell you that I am very sorry indeed for all the trouble I have caused you, and that I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Aunt Jackie, you are not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Nothing can induce me to take his hand. I think his coming down here disgraceful. He does perfectly well. Why?
Oh, Aunt Jackie, do be nice. There is some good in everyone. Ernest has just been telling me all about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury. So often. And surely there must be much good in one who is kind to an invalid and leaves the pleasures of London to sit by a bed of pain.
He's been talking to you about Bunbury, has he?
Of course, I admit that the faults were all on my side, but I must say I think Sister Jacqueline's coldness to me peculiarly painful.
Aunt Jackie, if you do not shake Ernest's hand right now, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me?
Never, never, never.
Well, it should be the last time I ever do it.
You have done a wonderful action today, dear child.
Let us not be premature in our judgments.
You must get out of this place as soon as possible, Algie, you young scoundrel. I don't allow any Bunbury here.
I've put Mr. Ernest's luggage in the room next to yours, miss.
His luggage.
Yes, miss. 3 portmanteaus, a dressing case, 2 hat boxes, and a large luncheon basket.
I'm afraid I can't stay more than a week this time.
Merriman, order the car at once. Mr. Earnest has been suddenly called back to town.
Yes, miss.
What a fearful liar you are, Jack. I have not been called back to town at all.
Yes, you have.
I have not heard anyone call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
My duty as a gentleman has never interfered with my pleasures in the smallest degree.
I quite understand that.
Well, Cecily is a darling.
You're not to speak of Miss Cardew like that. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. You look perfectly ridiculous in them. Why on earth did you go up and change? It is perfectly childish to be in deep mourning for a man who's really staying with you for a whole week in your house as a guest. I call it grotesque.
You are certainly not staying with me for a whole week as a guest or anything else. You've got to leave by the 4 or 5 train.
Well, I certainly won't leave you so long as you were in mourning. It would be most unfriendly. I were in mourning. You would stay with me, I suppose. I should think it very unkind if you didn't.
Will you go if I change my clothes?
Yes, if you are not too long. I never saw anybody take so long to dress with such little result.
At any rate, it's better than being always overdressed as you are.
I'm occasionally a little overdressed. I make up for it by being always immensely overeducated.
Your vanity is ridiculous. Your conduct an outrage. Your presence in my garden, absolutely absurd. However, you have got to catch the 4 or 5 train, and I do hope you have a very pleasant journey on your way back to town. This bunny burrowing, as you call it, has not been a great success for you.
I think it's been a great success. I'm in love with Cecily, and that is everything.
Oh, I merely came back to water the roses. I've already with Aunt Jackie.
She's gone to order the car for me.
Is she going to take you for a nice drive?
She's going to send me away. I'm afraid so. It's a very painful parting.
It is always painful parting from people whom one has known for a very brief space of time.
The car is at the door, sir.
It can wait, Merriman, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
I hope, Miss Cecily, I shall not offend you if I state quite frankly that you seem to me to be in every way the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you'll allow me, I will enter your remarks into my diary.
Do you really keep a diary? I'd give anything to look at it.
It is simply a very young girl's record of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. There's a volume form. I hope you'll order a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down dictation. See, I have reached absolute perfection. You can go on. I'm quite ready for more. Don't cough, Ernest. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell a cough.
Miss Cecily, ever since I first looked upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think you tell me you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't make much sense there, does it?
The car is waiting, sir.
Tell him to come round next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Aunt Jackie would be very much annoyed if she knew you were staying on till next week at the same hour.
Oh, I don't care about Jack. I don't care about anybody in the whole world but you. I love you, Miss Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy. Of course. Why, we've been engaged for the past 3 months.
For the past 3 months? How did we become engaged?
Well, ever since dear Aunt Jackie first confessed to us that she had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you, of course, have formed the chief topic of conversation. And of course, a man who is much talked about is always very attractive. I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
Darling! And when was the engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last, worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter, one way or the other. And after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you. The next day, I bought this ring in your name.
Very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you've wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It's the excuse you've always given for your leading such a bad life. Oh, and here is the box in which I keep keep all your dear letters.
My letters? But, my sweet Cecily, I've never written you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that, Ernest.
I remember only too well that I was forced to write your letters for you. The three you wrote me after our engagement was broken off.
So beautiful and so badly spelled that even now I can hardly read them without crying.
But was our engagement ever broken off?
Of course it was. On the 22nd of last March.
Today I broke off my engagement with Ernest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather still continues charming.
But why on earth did you break it off?
What had I done?
I had done nothing at all. Cecily, I'm very much hurt indeed to hear you should break it off, particularly when the weather was so charming.
Well, it would have hardly been a really serious engagement if it hadn't been broken off at least once. I forgave you before the week was out.
What a perfect angel you are, Cecily.
Oh, you dear romantic boy.
You'll never break off our engagement again, Cecily.
I don't think I could break it off now that I've actually met you.
Besides, there is the question of your name. You mustn't laugh at me, darling, but it had always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone by the name Ernest. There's something in that name that seems to inspire absolute confidence.
But, my dear sweet Cecily, do you mean to say you could not love me if I had some other name? Algernon, for instance?
I don't like the name of Algernon.
Oh, darling, I really don't see why you should object to the name of Algernon. But seriously, Cecily, if my name was Algie, couldn't you love me?
My respect to Ernest. I might admire your character, but I'm afraid I should not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your rector here is, I suppose, thoroughly practiced in all the rites and ceremonies of the church.
Yes.
Then I must see him at once on a most important christening, most important business. I'll be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy he is. I like his hair so much. I must enter his proposal in my diary.
Miss Fairfax, here to see Mr. Worthing.
Pray let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew. What a very sweet name. Something tells me we're going to be great friends. I already like you more than I can say. My first impressions of people are never wrong.
Oh, how nice of you to like me so much after we have known each other such a comparatively short time. Pray sit down.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
With pleasure.
And you will always call me Gwendolyn, won't you?
If you wish.
Cecily, Mamma, whose views on education are remarkably strict, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted. So do you mind my looking at you through my glasses?
Oh, not at all, Gwendolyn. I am very fond of being looked at.
You are here on short visit, I suppose.
Oh no, I live here.
Really? Your mother, or some other female relative of advanced years, resides here also?
Oh no, I have no mother, nor in fact any relations.
Indeed?
My dear guardian, with the assistance of Mr. Prism, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I am Miss Worthing's ward.
Oh! It is strange he never mentioned to me that he has a ward. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I'm not sure, however, the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. I am very fond of you, Cecily. I have liked you ever since I have met you. But I'm bound to point out that now that I know what you have told me, I cannot help expressing a wish you were, well, just a little older than you appear to be. And not quite so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly,
I do. I think that whenever anyone has anything unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
well, to speak with perfect candor, I wish you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest is the very soul of truth and honor, but even men of the noblest possible moral character are extremely susceptible to the influence of the physical charms of others.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolyn. Did you say Ernest?
Yes?
Oh, but it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his sister, his elder sister.
Ernest never mentioned to me that he had a sister.
I'm sorry to say they have not been on good terms for a long time.
Ah, that accounts for it. Cecily, you have lifted a load from my mind. It would have been terrible if any cloud could come across a friendship like ours, would it not? Of course, you are quite certain that it is not Mr. Earnest Worthing who is your guardian.
Oh, quite sure. In fact, I am going to be his.
I beg your pardon.
Dear Gwendolyn, there is no reason I should make a secret of it to you. Our little county newspaper is sure to chronicle the fact next week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
I'm afraid there must be some slight error, dear Cecily. Mr. Earnest Worthing is engaged to me. The news will appear in the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
I am afraid you are under some misconception. Mr. Ernest Worthing proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
It is certainly very curious because he asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. I never travel without my diary. What should have something sensational to read on the train? I am so sorry, darling Cecily, if there's any disappointment to you, but I'm afraid that I have the prior claim.
Well, it would distress me more than I can tell you, dear Gwendolyn, if it caused you any mental or physical anguish, but I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he clearly has changed his mind.
If the poor boy has been entrapped into any foolish promise, I would consider it my duty to rescue him at once, and with a firm hand.
Well, whatever unfortunate entanglement my dear boy may have gotten into, I will never reproach him with it after we are married.
Do you allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? You are presumptuous. On an occasion like this, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you? This is no time for wearing the shallow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade! Ha!
I am glad to say that I have never seen a spade. It is obvious that our social circles have been widely different.
Shall I lay tea here as usual, miss?
Yes, as usual.
Quite a well-kept garden this is, Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Flowers are as common here, Miss Fairfax, as people are in London. May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you, detestable girl, but I require tea.
Sugar?
Oh no, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter, please. Cake is rarely seen at the best houses nowadays. You have filled my tea with lumps of sugar! And though I asked most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake! I have known the gentleness of my disposition and the extraordinary sweetness of my character. But I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far.
To save my poor, innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of any other girl, there are no lengths to which I would not go.
From the moment I saw you, I distrusted you. I felt that you were deceitful and false. I am never deceived in such matters. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
Well, it seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I am trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have many other calls of a similar character to make in the neighborhood.
Ernest! My own Ernest!
Gwendolyn, darling.
A moment. May I ask, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To dear little Cecily, of course not.
Thank you. You may.
I knew there must be some mistake, Miss Fairfax. You see, the person whose arm is uprooted around your waist is my guardian, Miss Jacqueline Worthing.
I beg your pardon.
This is on Jack! Here is Ernest.
My own love.
A moment, Ernest. Let me ask you, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
What young lady? Good heavens, Gwendolyn! Of course not.
Thank you. You may.
I knew there must be some slight error, Miss Cardew. The person who is currently embracing you is my cousin, Algernon Moncrief.
Algernon Moncrief? Are you called Algernon?
Cannot deny it.
Do people really call you
Jack! I can deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But my name is certainly Jack. A gross deception has been practiced on both of us.
my poor wounded Cecily?
My sweet wronging Gwendolyn.
You will call me sister, will you not? Mr. Worthing, there is a question I will be permitted to put to you. Where is your brother, Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother, Ernest, so it is a matter of some importance to us to know where your brother, Ernest, is at present.
Gwendolyn! Cecily! It is very painful for me to be forced to speak the truth. I'm really quite inexperienced doing anything of the kind. However, I may tell you quite frankly that I have no brother, Ernest. I have no brother at all. I never had a brother, and I certainly have not the smallest intention of having a brother in the future.
I'm afraid it is quite clear, dear Cecily, that neither one of us is engaged to be married to anyone.
It's not a very pleasant position for a young girl to find herself in, is it?
Let us venture to go into the house. They will hardly venture to follow us there.
No, they are so cowardly, aren't they? No. This ghastly state of things is what you call bunburying, I suppose.
Yes, and what a perfectly wonderful Bunbury it is. The most wonderful Bunbury I have ever had in my life.
Well, the only small satisfaction I have in the whole of this wretched business is your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. Won't be able to run down to the country quite so often as he used to, dear Algie. Quite a good thing, too.
Your brother's a little off color, isn't he, dear Jax? You won't be able to disappear to London quite so frequently as your wicked custom was. Not a bad thing, either.
I wanted to be engaged to Gwendolyn, that is all. I love her.
Well, I simply wanted to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
There's certainly no chance of you marrying Miss Cardew.
I don't think there's much likelihood, Jack, of you and Miss Fairfax being united.
How can you sit there calmly eating muffins when we are in this horrible trouble? I can't make out!
Oh, I'm planning muffins in an agitated manner. Muffins again on my cups.
I say it's perfectly heartless you're eating muffins at all, under the circumstances.
When I'm in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Besides, I'm particularly fond of muffins.
Well, that's no reason why you should eat them all in that greedy way.
I wish you'd have tea cake instead. I don't like tea cake.
Good heavens, Algernon, I wish to goodness you would go.
But I've just made arrangements with Dr. Trustable to be christened at 5:45 under the name of Earnest.
I made arrangements with Dr. Trustable to be christened Ernest myself at 5:30. We can't be both christened Ernest, it's absurd! Besides, I have the perfect right to be christened Ernest if I would like. There's no evidence at all that I've been christened before. It's entirely different in your case. You've been christened already.
Quite so. So I know my constitution can stand it. You are not quite sure about your ever having been christened. I must say, I think it rather dangerous you're venturing on it now. It might make you very unwell. You can hardly have forgotten that someone very closely connected with you was very nearly carried off this week in Paris by a severe chill.
You said yourself that severe chill was not hereditary!
It used to be, but science is always making wonderful improvements.
That is nonsense!
Jack, you are the muffins again. I wish you wouldn't. There are only 2 left.
But I hate tea cake.
Why on earth do you allow it to be served up for your guests? What ideas you have of hospitality.
Algernon, I have already asked you to go. I don't want you here. Why don't you go?
Well, I haven't quite finished my tea yet. Besides,
The fact they did not follow us at once into the house seems to me to suggest they have some sense of shame left.
They're eating muffins. That looks like repentance.
They're looking at us! What effrontery!
Ah, they're approaching. That's very forward of them.
Let us preserve a dignified silence.
Certainly. Algernon, this is your duty do now. Be an adult for once in your life. Go!
This dignified silence seems to produce an unpleasant effect.
A most distasteful. Started this.
But we will not be the first to speak.
Certainly not. You started this.
Mr. Irving! I have something very particular to say to you. Much depends on your reply.
Gwendolyn, your common sense is invaluable. Miss Moncrief, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
Only that I may have the opportunity of meeting you.
Well, that certainly seems a satisfactory explanation, does it not?
Yes, dear, if you can believe them.
Oh, I don't, but it's not something of their answer.
True, in matters of grave importance, style, not sincerity, is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you offer to me for pretending to have a brother? Was it in order that you might have the opportunity of coming up to town to see me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have my gravest doubts on the matter, but I intend to crush them. Your explanations appear satisfactory, especially Mr. Worthing's.
I am more than content with what Miss Moncrief had to say. Their voice alone inspires one with absolute credulity.
Oh, then you think we should forgive them both?
Yes.
I mean, no.
True, I had forgotten. There are principles at stake that one must not surrender. Which one of us should tell them? The task's not a pleasant one.
Could we not both speak at the same time?
An excellent idea. I nearly always speak at the same time as other people. Will you take the time from me?
Certainly.
Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier.
But we are going to
visit this afternoon. For my sake, you're prepared to do this terrible thing.
I am.
Please me, you are prepared to face this fearful ordeal.
I am.
Darling!
Lady Bracknell.
Good heavens!
Gwendolyn, what does this mean?
Merely that I'm engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Come here. Sit down. Sit down immediately. Hesitation of any kind is a sign of mental decay in the young, of physical weakness in the old. You will clearly understand that all communication between yourself and my daughter must cease immediately from this moment. On that point, as indeed on all points, I am firm. I am engaged to be married to Gwendolyn
Lady Bracknell.
You are nothing of the kind, sir. And now, as regards Algernon.
Yes, Aunt Augusta?
May I ask if it is in this house that your invalid friend Mr. Bunbury resides?
Oh no, Bunbury doesn't live here. Bunbury is somewhere else. In fact, Bunbury is dead.
Dead? When did Mr. Bunbury die? His death must have been extremely sudden.
Oh, I killed Bunbury this afternoon.
What did he die of?
Bunbury? Oh, he was quite exploded.
Exploded? Was he the victim of a revolutionary outrage? I was not aware that Mr. Bunbury was interested in social legislation. If so, he was well punished for his morbidity.
Dear Aunt Augusta, Bunbury was found out. The doctors found out that Bunbury could not live. That is what I mean. So Bunbury died.
Well, he seems to have had great confidence in the opinion of his physicians. I am glad, however, that he made up his mind at last to some definite course of action and acted under proper medical advice. Now that we've finally got rid of this Mr. Bunbury, may I ask Mr. Worthing, who is that young person whose hand my nephew Algernon is now holding in what seems to me to be a peculiarly unnecessary manner?
That young lady happens to be Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
Algernon and I are engaged to be married, Lady Bracknell.
Mr. Worthing, is Miss Cardew at all connected with any of the larger railway stations in London? I merely desire information. Until yesterday, I had no idea there were any families or persons whose origin was a terminus.
Miss Cecily Cardew is the granddaughter of Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square, SW, Gervais Park, Dorking, Surrey, and the Spiran, Fifeshire, NB.
3 addresses always inspires confidence even in tradesmen. So far, I am satisfied.
How extremely kind of you, Lady Bracknell.
Gwendolen, the time approaches for our departure. As a matter of form, Mr. Worthing, I had better ask you if Miss Cardew has any little fortune.
Oh, only about 12 million pounds, that is all. Goodbye, Lady Bracknell. I'm so pleased to have seen you.
A moment, Mr. Worthing. 12 million pounds. Miss Cardew seems to me to be a most attractive young lady now that I look at her. Few girls of the present day have any really solid qualities. We live, I regret to say, in an age of surfaces. Come over here, dear. Your clothes are sadly simple, and the hair looks almost as nature might have left it. But we can soon alter all that. Kindly turn round, sweet child. No. The side view is what I want. Chin a little higher, dear. Style largely depends on the way the chin is worn. Algernon?
Yes, Aunt Augusta?
There are distinct social possibilities in Miss Cardew's profile.
Cecily is the sweetest, dearest, prettiest person in the whole world. I don't care 2 pence about social possibilities.
Well, I suppose I must give my consent.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell.
You may address me as Aunt Augusta for the future.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
The wedding, I think, had better take place quite soon. To speak frankly, I am not in favor of long engagements. They give people the opportunity of finding out each other's character before marriage, which I think is never advisable.
I beg your pardon for interrupting you, Lady Bracknell, but I'm afraid this engagement is quite out of the question. I am Miss Cardew's guardian, and she can't marry without my consent until she comes of age. That consent I absolutely decline to give.
Upon what grounds, may I ask? Algernon is an extremely, I may almost say an ostentatiously eligible young man. He has nothing, but he looks everything. What more could one desire?
It pains me very much, Lady Bracknell, to have to speak to you frankly about your nibbling, but the fact is, I don't approve at all of their moral character. I suspect them of being untruthful.
Untruthful? Impossible!
I fear there can be no doubts upon the matter. This afternoon, they obtained admission to my house by the means of a false pretense of being my brother. Under an assumed name, they drank, I've just been informed by my butler, an entire bottle of my Chateauneuf de Pape 89, one I was specifically reserving for myself. Continuing their disgraceful deception, they managed over the course of an afternoon in alienating the affections of my only ward. Subsequently, they stayed at tea and devoured every single muffin. What makes their conduct more purposes? They knew perfectly well from the first that I have no brother. I never had a brother, and I certainly have not the smallest intention of having a brother in the future.
Mr. Worthing, after careful consideration, I have decided entirely to overlook my nephew's conduct to you.
That is very, very generous of you, Lady Bracknell. My own decision, however, is unalterable.
How old are you, dear?
Well, I'm really only 18, but I've always admit to 20 when I go to evening parties.
You are perfectly right in making some slight alteration. Indeed, no woman should ever be quite accurate about her age. It looks so calculating. Well, it will not be very long before you are free from the restraints of tutelage, so I don't think your guardian's consent is, after all, a matter of any importance.
Pray excuse me, Lady Bracknell, for interrupting you again, but it's only fair of me to tell you that, according to the terms of her grandfather's will, Cecily doesn't come legally of age until she is 35.
That does not seem to me to be a grave objection. 35 is a very attractive age. London society is full of women of the very highest birth who have, of their own free will, remained 35 for years. I see no reason why our dear Miss Cecily should not be even still more attractive at that age you mentioned than she is at present. There will be a large accumulation of property.
Alvin, could you wait for me until I was 35?
Of course I could, Cecily. You know I could.
Yes, I knew it instinctively. But I could not wait all that time. I hate waiting even 5 minutes for anybody.
What is to be done, Cecily?
I don't know, Alvin.
My dear Mr. Worthing, as Miss Cardew states positively that she cannot wait until she is 35, I must beg of you to reconsider your decision.
But my dear Lady Bracknell, the matter is entirely in your own hands. The moment you consent to my marriage with Gwendolyn, I will most gladly allow your nibbling to form an alliance with my ward.
You must be quite aware that what you propose is out of the question.
Then passionate celibacy is all that any of us can look forward to.
That is not the destiny that I propose for Gwendolyn. Algernon, of course, can choose for himself. Come, dear. We have already missed 5, if not 6 strings. To miss any more might expose us to comment on the platform.
Everything is quite ready for the christening.
The christening, sir. Is not that somewhat premature?
Both of them have expressed a desire for immediate baptism.
At their age, the idea is grotesque and irreligious.
Am I to understand, then, that there are to be no christenings this afternoon?
I don't think that, as things are now, Dr. Chasuble, it'd be very much practical value to either of us.
I'm grieved to hear such sentiments from you, Miss Worthing. They savor of the heretical views of the Anabaptists. Ahem. However, as your present mood is one peculiarly secular, I will return to the church at once. Indeed, I have just been informed by the pew opener that for the last hour and a half, Mr. Prism has been waiting for me in the vestry.
Mr. Prism? Did I hear you mention a Mr. Prism?
Yes, I was just on my way to join it.
Pray allow me to detain you for a moment. Is this Mr. Prism a male, a repellent aspect remotely connected with education?
He is the most cultivated of gentlemen, and the very picture of respectability.
It is obviously the same person. May I ask what position he holds in your household?
I am a celibate, madam.
Lady Bracknell, Mr. Prism has been, for the last 3 years, the esteemed tutor and valued companion of Miss Cecily.
I must see him at once. Let him be sent for.
He approaches. He is not.
Would you expect me in the vestry, dear Canon? I have been waiting for you there for an hour and 3/4.
Prism! Come here, Prism! Prism! Where is that baby? 28 years ago, Prism, you left Lord Bracknell's house in charge of a perambulator that contained a baby of the male sex. You never returned. A few weeks later, through the elaborate investigations of the Metropolitan Police, the perambulator was discovered standing alone at midnight in a remote corner of Bayswater. It contained the manuscript of a 3-volume novel of more than usually revolting sentimentality, but the baby was not there. Prism! Where is that baby?
Lady Bracknell, I admit with great shame that I do not know. I only wish I did. Actually, the plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day you mentioned, a day that is forever branded in my memory, I prepared as usual to take the baby out in its perambulator. I had also with me a somewhat old but capacious handbag in which I had intended to place the manuscript of a book of fiction that I had written during my few unoccupied hours. In a moment of mental abstraction, for which I can never forgive myself, I deposited the manuscript in the bassinet and placed the baby in the handbag.
Where did you deposit that handbag?
Do not ask me, Miss Worthing.
Mr. Prism, this is a matter of no small importance to me. I insist on knowing where you deposited that handbag that contained that infant.
I left it at one of the larger railway stations in London.
I must retire to my room for a moment. Gwendolyn, wait here for me?
If you are not too long, I will wait for you all my life.
This noise is extremely unpleasant. It sounds as if he was having an argument. I dislike arguments of any kind. They are always vulgar and often convincing.
Oh, take a stop.
Oh, the suspense is horrible! I hope you'll last.
Mr. Prism! Is this the handbag? Examine it carefully before you speak. The happiness of more than one life depends on your answer.
Oh. Yes, this bag is undoubtedly mine. I'm delighted to have it restored to me after all these years. It has been a great inconvenience being without it.
More is restored to you than the handbag, Mr. Prism. I was the baby you placed in it.
You?
Yes. Father!
Oh,
do not deny that it's a serious crime. However, who has the right to cast stones against one who has suffered? Cannot repentance wipe out an act of folly? I forgive you.
Oh, there is some error. There is the lady who can tell you who you really are.
Lady Bracknell, I hate to seem inquisitive, but would you kindly inform me who I am?
I'm afraid that the news I have to give you may not altogether please you. You are the son of my sister, Mrs. Moncrief, and consequently, Algernon's elder brother.
Alger's elder brother. Then I have a brother after all? I knew I had a brother. I always said I had a brother, Cecily. How could you have ever doubted that I had a brother? Dr. Tossable, my unfortunate brother. Mr. Prism, my unfortunate brother. Gwendolyn, my unfortunate brother. You young scoundrel, Algie. You're gonna have to treat me with more respect in the future. You never treat me like a brother in your whole life.
I did my best, old boy. Though I admit I was out of practice.
My own? But what own are you? What is your Christian name now that you've become someone else?
Good heavens, I'd quite forgotten that point. I suppose the decision on the subject of my name is irrevocable?
I never change, except for my affections.
That's a question had better be cleared up at once. Aunt Augusta, a moment. At the time when Mr. Prism left me in the handbag, had I been christened already?
Every luxury that money could buy, including christening, had been lavished on you by your fond and doting parents.
And that settles it. Now, what name was I given? Let me know the worst.
Being the eldest son, you were naturally christened after your father.
But what was my father's Christian name?
Well, I cannot at the present moment recall what the general's Christian name was, but I have no doubt that he had one. He was eccentric, I'll admit, but only in later years. And that was a result of the Indian climate. And marriage. And indigestion.
Ernest!
Ernest?
My dear brother, our father's Christian name was Earnest.
Ernest. Gwendolyn, I always told you my name was Ernest, didn't I? Well, it's Ernest after all. I mean, naturally, it is Ernest.
Yes, I remember now that the general was called Earnest. I knew I had a particular reason for disliking the name.
Ernest, my own Ernest. I knew from the first that you could have no other name.
Gwendolyn, it's a terrible thing for a man to find out quite suddenly that all his life he's been telling nothing but the truth. Can you forgive me?
I can, for I feel you are sure to change.
My own one.
Lawrence? Frederick, at last.
Algernon,